Bruh, there is only one thing that is more 恶心 than Jiang Yurong's Harvard graduation speech. Fungus.
I'm gonna be a dad.
No, not that fungus, but just 3 days ago, there was a news report about a Chinese international student smuggling in some fungus into the USA. And when the FBI decided to call it an act of agro-terrorism, 我真的觉得他们说得太夸张了. And when it came to this topic, it was a hard pass, until I decided to do a little bit of digging. And then I realized 事情很大条咯. Because it turns out the FBI wasn't 说得太夸张 at all. This is some legit agro-terrorism shit. Now, the news only reported what was surface level, that a Chinese international student tried to smuggle some fungus into the US. But what they didn't tell you is exactly what these students are capable of. And also that this ain't no ordinary fungus, yo. It's genetically engineered, like Wolverine, a dangerous militarized weapon, the product of artificial modification. And I guarantee after watching today's video, you're gonna need 2 bags of 2 different flavors of Baomihua. But let's start first with a Kurokokomochi flavor that comes in these tiny little bite-sized fun bags. And once you open it up, just like this entire situation, 代志大条咯. Now, the past week has been absolutely wild and 精彩 as fuck. From Trump banning Harvard from admitting international students, to Harvard's sponsor sending out a CCP graduate to give the graduation speech, then all the way to Trump's clapback with this.
The FBI now says 2 Chinese nationals have been charged with smuggling a potentially toxic fungus that could ravage crops in the United States. They were trying to bring those to the homeland. Now, one of those suspects is in custody, will appear in a federal courtroom tomorrow at 1 p.m. The other is in China after he was denied entry into the U.S. while trying to smuggle in that biological pathogen last year.
Now, when I first heard about this fungus smuggling, I thought, weird. Is fungus really that serious? Why in the hell is Fox News hyping this up so much?
But what this takes me back to is after September 11th. After September 11th, the CIA concluded and they said to the White House that it's not a question of if, it's a question of when there will be a second attack. And the second attack that we feared the most and prepared the hardest to prevent was a biological attack, because that can cause the greatest destruction. And don't forget, we're dealing with a China that regularly hacks and infiltrates America's industrial infrastructure. They have made it a state business to get inside American systems, to disrupt them, to steal from us, to take, to harm us, not to mention what they've done with fentanyl, to poison us. This is the China we deal with. And if this does turn out to be, if the investigators say, if the Department of Justice reveals that this does appear to be tied to a biological attack, I don't know what the next step has to be with China.
And after watching Fox's take, I figured it was just their typical exaggerated, propagandizing, dog-whistling, anti-CCP rhetoric. Cause you know, lately they've been really pissed at China. So then I switched over to a more pro-China outlet. You know, the one that claimed it was racist to say that COVID came from a Chinese lab? The network that everyone knows and trusts, CNN.
This type of smuggling is actually rare, as Josh said in the lead-in. Most of the time we see these cases, it's researchers exfiltrating or trying to remove information or materials outside of the US from their research. So in 2019, we had a Harvard researcher that was a Chinese national that smuggled 21 samples of a biological agent in his sock and tried to get out of Logan Airport. We've seen other instances where China has actually been involved in either doing cyber attacks to try to get this information, or having operatives that are sent here as students try to get this information outside of the country. So it's particularly rare in my research to show that individuals are actually bringing that here. But once again, if that gets out, that can have catastrophic effects, and you can see how they wouldn't want to do that type of research in their home country.
This is where my interest was piqued, because even CNN spent a lot of time on this very particular story. And what intrigued me the most was their final closing remark.
If that gets out, that can have catastrophic effects, and you can see how they wouldn't want to do that type of research in their home country.
That line 让我很好奇 as fuck, because it felt like they were hinting at something, almost like giving us a clue, which inspired me to do exactly what I do best. Here on 好机车, I went deep. Now, after going deep on Yunqing, the fungus smuggling student, what I uncovered shocked me even more than Harvard's Jiang Yurong. Because if Yurong is the CCP's political propagandist in the US, then Yunqing is the CCP's bioweapon expert. And to understand what I'm saying, all you need to do is throw up her name in Google Scholar, in Loma Pining of course, and you'll see a shit ton of research papers authored by her. And quite a few of them are all on one particular subject, Fusarium graminearum.
Interplay of two transcription factors for recruitment of the chromatin remodeling complex modulates fungal nitrosative stress response.
Now, I am 100% certain that this paper was written by the same Yunqing who smuggled that fungus in, because not only is her Google Scholar profile linked to her University of Michigan email, but the second co-author of this paper is her boyfriend, Liu Zunyong, who in the exact same incident reported on the news was denied entry into the US and sent back to China.
Here, we identify FGRB as a regulator of the NS response in Fusarium graminearum, a fungal pathogen of cereal crops. FGRB serves as a pioneer transcription factor for recruitment of the chromatin remodeling complex SWI-SNF at the promoters of genes involved in the NS response, thus promoting their transcription. FGRB plays important roles in fungal infection and growth. Furthermore, we show that a transcription repressor, FGIXR1, competes with the SWI-SNF complex for FGRB binding and negatively regulates the NS response. NS, in turn, promotes the degradation of FGIXR1, thus enhancing the recruitment of the SWI-SNF complex by FGARB.
Now, like many of you, I had no idea what all this meant, because although it was all in English, when you put it all together, it seemed more like 简体中文字哎，我夸吧。
Goddamn right.
Now, I have linked all the research papers I'm going to talk about in this video in the description down below. And if any of you guys have expertise in this area, please comment and let me know if my interpretation is correct. Because after researching a lot and asking various AI models, I've come up with a very basic layman summary of this paper. Simply put, Yunqing and her boyfriend, Zunyong, discovered how Fusarium graminearum counters a plant's immune system attacks. Even simpler, they found the fungus's armor in a very key gene, the FGAREB. Wow. Sounds pretty impressive, right? Because if you target the protein produced by this gene with drugs or use RNA interference to disable it, you could strip the fungus of its armor and crops would no longer see the Fusarium graminearum as a threat.
Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe fuck yourself.
But the history of human technological advancement is like humanity's favorite pastime, fucking ourselves.
But it's not all about gene editing. Several labs have been working on ways to use CRISPR to promote gene transcription. They do this by deactivating Cas9 completely, so it can no longer cut DNA. Instead, transcriptional activators are added to the Cas9 by either fusing them directly or via a string of peptides. Alternatively, the activators can be recruited to the guide RNA instead. These activators recruit the cell's transcription machinery, bringing RNA polymerase and other factors to the target, and increasing transcription of that gene.
Using gene editing technology like CRISPR to make specific genes overexpress, in simple terms, CRISPR can make the FGARB gene in Fusarium graminearum stronger by a lot, producing more proteins and better resisting a crop's immune system response. And the term we heard most during the pandemic, this is gain-of-function technology.
Fuck you.
Now, I'm sure at this point, there were quite a few in the comments who were clapping back with something like,
唢呐，这个研究文件只是说他们调出那个 FG 啥小的那个基因而已啊，他们根本没有做任何的 engineer 啊，有可能他只是把东西 smuggle 进来而已啊，因为他要做研究啊。
That's a fair point, and I thought so too. So, why don't you open up another bag of popcorn? Because in the next chapter, I'm going to reveal exactly what were in the contents of the official FBI investigation report. And once you see what's inside, you will come to the exact same conclusion that I did. This is a straight up military operation, yo. And 真的是大起大掉。 All right, let's get to it. So in this chapter, I'm going to take you through the majority of the FBI investigation and the conversations they stumbled upon courtesy of AI. And in a minute, you're going to realize that Yunqing, along with her boyfriend on some bizarro James Bond shit, were doing some very sketchy things in a US laboratory. And make no mistake, Yunqing swears complete allegiance to the 4 pillars and everything that represents the CCP.
Yunqing Zhan is a citizen of the People's Republic of China, PRC, who obtained her doctorate degree in plant pathogens from Zhejiang University in the PRC. After graduating, Jun received money from a Chinese foundation, which is largely funded by the PRC government, to conduct postdoctoral work, which included research on a particular biological pathogen that can cause devastating diseases in crops.
Now, one of the main reasons why this became a huge international issue is because the majority of the funding that Yunqing received was from the CCP. Not only that, but her sole purpose was to come to the United States and study this particular fungus. But as you're about to discover research was just a simple cover. The real purpose of her mission was something very sinister, and the entire plan was very meticulously orchestrated.
You need to pick up your luggage when you go through customs.
That is to say, in San Francisco.
Yes.
And then go through security again.
So be careful.
Okay.
Teacher Liang's seeds must be placed well.
Where to put it? I only have one pair of shoes. The insole cannot be pulled off.
Did you bring just one pair of shoes?
3 pair, wear 1 pair.
Where did the seeds get put? In the tube?
I put them in my Martin boots, in a small bag, the Ziploc bag, very small.
That's good. Just put it in your shoes.
I stuffed them in the shoe.
Now keep in mind that these are the same individuals who co-authored several papers on fusarium, and also both of them lied to the federal government and made several plans to smuggle the fungus into the United States illegally. And here's one thing that you need to know. Although heavily regulated by the USDA, you can actually apply for a permit to study it. In fact, the United States has a shit ton of it, so there ain't really any good reason to smuggle it in. So that begs the question, why in the world would these two individuals who know exactly how to make this fungus more deadly not want to go through the proper channels and just apply for a permit to research in the United States, but instead go through all the trouble and risk of smuggling it in from China?
I just went down to help with your plans. Fortunately, I went.
Did the boss and her team inspect it?
Met them on patrol, yes.
All right. That's such a coincidence.
Your cell death phenotype plants were seen by the principal investigator.
What did you say?
She asked me what it was. I said it was Zun Yong's leftover plant. She said it has a strong phenotype. Your label clearly states your name.
What should I do then? She didn't say anything else, did she? I usually put it on the top shelf. Forgot this time and put it below.
She asked me what this phenotype was. I said it should be effector. There's nothing I can do. It really pushed me to the brink of despair. She said, "What is the effector?"
Was she angry?
I said it was fusarium. No. She also asked me if you had detected it before. She thought it was FOs. I didn't dare tell her it was FG. Fortunately, I didn't say it was FG. That's even more serious.
Okay, so FO and FG are two very different types of fusarium. Compared to its counterpart, FG is the one that can cause some very severe fungal infections. And FG is the one they wanted to smuggle into the United States. What, for research? Nah, fool, because they wanted to modify that shit. I mean, they could have gone through the proper channels and applied for a government permit, but then that would have put them on the government's radar.
It's a pity that I still have to work for you.
Once this is done, everything else will be easy.
My seedlings are not usable yet.
It's okay.
A batch just passed. The new one is not good yet.
First, let's test the expression. Are centrifuges easy to use now?
Not as useful as before, but it can be used. The expression I mentioned this time is okay.
DNA proposed is not as useful as before?
Well enough, but the quantity is not that big.
Maybe the centrifuge is not working well.
Maybe you can do the same as before.
That's not necessarily true. Did you receive the peptides? The courier showed that it had been delivered on Thursday.
Now this bit right here is really important. But before you understand how important it is, you must, just like me, realize that we are not experts. So let me share with you a little bit of basic knowledge that I learned about this subject.
Our cells have expression too, gene expression. They can express genes. To express a gene means that a gene can be used to make something functional, often a protein. In our protein synthesis video, we talk about these steps. The gene, which is made up of DNA, can be transcribed into mRNA during transcription, and then used in translation to make a polypeptide chain. A protein is made up of one or more of those chains.
So the term gene expression mentioned in these two's conversation,
the new one is not good yet.
First, let's test the expression.
Explicitly refers to checking the gene expression. What kind of expression? You can find the answer to that in the third sentence that follows.
DNA proposed is not as useful as before?
Well enough, but the quantity is not that big.
So what exactly is this quantity? Well, it's a protein produced by the fungal gene, and according to this conversation, they don't think it's big enough. Do you remember back in chapter 2 when we talk about how these two found the F-Garib gene, which creates the armor for the fungus? Well, if I got it right, the more protein that this gene produces, the more armor fusarium has, making it OP as fuck when it comes to resisting the plant's immune defenses. In other words, these two fools are very likely creating a genetically enhanced fungus in the United States.
Just a small announcement. you're pretty close to going to hell.
And do you know what the worst part of all is? Is that Yunqing published 14 peer-reviewed papers, 5 of which are all about this particular fungus. And the one that focuses on the fungus's armor gene was published back in 2022 at Zhejiang University in China. And that paper had 7 authors, one of whom is currently the vice chairman of the Chinese Society of Plant Pathology. And do you really think they would have been highly ethical and over the past 3 years refused to create enhanced fungi for the Chinese government?
No.
Now, when it comes to Taiwan's self-sufficiency and food supply, it barely even touches 30%, yo. The rest completely relying on imports. Now, I'm willing to bet that China already has fully functional fungi that can compromise and target grains. And with us facing the very possible risk of war, if Taiwan and America suddenly face a food crisis at the exact same time, 事情很大条咯.
Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe! Now, this is the part where I need to remind you that I am in no way a professional on this stuff, and it is a very huge possibility that I might be wrong. After all, I'm just a nigga YouTubing in my underwear. So, I hope by some chance there will be some of you who are very well-informed professionals who can leave your commentary down below. Or maybe some of you know someone who is very well-versed on this subject and you can share it with them. Because the way I see it, the only reason why these two would take all the risk and time to come all the way to America and smuggle this illegal shit with the risk of getting caught must be so that they can set up some, accidental leak scenario. We've already been there before, haven't we? But I really hope I am wrong. Otherwise, 大起多掉咯. Or maybe not. Let me know what you think down below. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and keep it civil down in the comments. And I will see you on the flip side. Peace!